So Prince William basically had to go full detective mode inside his own family because he realized someone was quietly editing his father's schedule and hiding medical reports. And honestly, the whole thing sounds less like a royal family and more like a corporate power struggle where the boss doesn't know his emails are being intercepted. That's where this story actually starts getting interesting, because when you look at what William was supposedly seeing versus what was actually happening, the contradictions just start piling up in a way that's hard to ignore. Here's the setup. It's mid-2026. The official royal schedule for the second half of the year drops, and on the surface, everything looks normal. The usual round of events, state visits, receptions, memorials, all the things the monarchy does without most of us really paying attention. But William is sitting in his private office at Kensington Palace, going through this document page by page, and something is off. The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, a major state visit to Canada, a national memorial service, reception after reception for heads of state. All of it still has King Charles listed as the primary host. Every single major event. And the thing is, by this point, the royal physicians have been saying for a while that Charles needs to significantly reduce his workload. The treatments have been ongoing, his health hasn't been stable, everyone close to the situation knows this. So William is looking at a schedule that would exhaust a completely healthy person and wondering why none of it has been delegated to him, like at all. Not even the preparation work, not even the secondary appearances, nothing. It makes no sense from any practical standpoint. Now, if this was just an oversight, you'd expect a quick conversation to clear it up. Someone says, "Oh, sorry, we'll adjust that," and everyone moves on. But that's not what happened. William apparently reached out to the coordination office asking for an explanation, and the responses he got were vague. Everything follows the latest instructions from the king, they said. No details, no explanations, just this blanket assurance that everything was fine. And Catherine, who's been watching all of this unfold, is the one who asked the obvious question. Have you asked them directly what's going on? And William's response is basically that he's tried, and the answers don't add up. He knows his father is exhausted. He can see it. The public appearances, the resilient smile, the sense of duty, it's all still there, but the fatigue is becoming harder to hide. Charles is pushing through because that's what he's always done, but William could see the slightly slumped shoulders after long ceremonies, the heavier steps, the way the sharpness in his eyes is still present, but the energy behind it isn't what it used to be. It's the kind of observation only someone who truly knows him would make. So now you've got this situation where the heir to the throne is watching his father run himself into the ground, while someone somewhere in the system is making sure none of the burden gets shifted. And William starts doing what anyone in his position would probably do. He starts quietly investigating. He formally requests the latest medical report on King Charles, which is apparently a standard procedure that's existed for years, specifically so the heir can understand the situation and help arrange an appropriate workload. Not controversial, not unusual, just basic operational planning. But this time the files don't come. Days pass, minor delays turn into longer delays, excuses start circulating, and this is where William apparently realizes something is genuinely wrong, because he calls the head of support directly, and his voice is firm. He says he needs the medical report that day, that this is standard procedure, and he wants to know why there's an obstacle. The response is still evasive, still dancing around the core question. So he does what you do when you're getting stonewalled. He tasks his own trusted team with examining the entire internal document flow, and what they find is honestly kind of stunning. All recent health reports on the king, test results, assessments from top doctors, recommendations for adjusting the schedule, all of it had to pass through Queen Camilla's office before reaching any other department. Every single document, this is not how it's supposed to work. William apparently tells Catherine that this is no longer a simple administrative issue, and he's right. When medical information about the sitting monarch is being filtered through one specific office before anyone else can see it, that's not a process problem, that's a control problem. And the implications of that are genuinely serious. And if you step back and think about what that means in practical terms, it gets worse. The whole point of sharing medical reports with the heir is so he can help manage the workload and avoid unnecessary risks. If those reports are being delayed or edited or held back, then the heir can't do his job. The king keeps getting scheduled for things he shouldn't be doing. The fatigue accumulates, the health risks increase, and whoever is controlling that information flow is effectively controlling the pace of the entire transition of power. That's not a small thing. That's the mechanism by which someone keeps their influence intact while the person who's supposed to be preparing to take over is left in the dark. The entire constitutional machinery depends on accurate information reaching the right people at the right time. Now, the timeline here matters a lot. About 3 months before all of this came to light, when the first medical reports started showing a noticeable decline in Charles's health, Camilla apparently made some very calculated decisions. She's in her private office at Claret's house, and according to what later emerged, she summoned her trusted aides and made it clear that all health reports and proposals to adjust the schedule had to go through her office before going anywhere else. Her reasoning, at least what she expressed, was that the king's schedule needed to remain stable for as long as possible. But the effect was that any document mentioning reducing Charles's workload or delegating tasks to William had to be thoroughly reviewed by her first. And what happened to those proposals? Many of them came back with generic reasons: needs the king's direct review, not the right time, requires further consideration. Doctors and advisors were making reasonable suggestions about gradually transferring responsibilities, and those suggestions were being systematically blocked. One after another, they simply vanished into the administrative machinery. The logic Camilla was operating under is actually pretty clear when you look at it. She understood that if William took on more duties early, her influence and that of her office would diminish. It's a straightforward power calculation. She had stood by Charles through difficult times. She had built a position within the institution, and a transition threatened all of that. She also apparently understood William's character well enough to know that he wouldn't confront his father directly about this, fearing it would worsen Charles's condition. So she exploited that. She kept Charles at the center of everything, encouraged him to keep going, and simultaneously made sure the mechanisms that would naturally shift responsibilities to William were jammed. It was calculated and it was methodical, but here's where the plan starts to fall apart in ways she didn't anticipate. William, being William, didn't just accept the vague responses and move on. He kept digging. His team did a full cross-check of schedules, internal emails, and document transfer timelines between offices. And what they found was systematic. Proposals to reduce the king's schedule had been held back for days or even weeks before reaching him. Some documents had been edited, with entire sections suggesting William take on important tasks completely removed. This wasn't a random mistake. This wasn't one overworked assistant making an error. This was deliberate, repeated intervention with a clear and unmistakable pattern. The evidence was mounting with every new document they examined, and then the thing happens that really changes the trajectory of this whole situation. A long-serving secretary in the royal office, someone who had witnessed all the changes happening over those months, had quietly kept the original schedules, the unedited versions, the documents that showed numerous important tasks once proposed for William had been crossed out or altered. He kept them as a safeguard, which honestly is a pretty smart move when you're working in an environment where documents are being systematically changed. When he eventually received orders to be completely removed from his position, he decided he wasn't going to stay silent anymore. He arranged a meeting with William at a safe location outside the palace, handed over the folder, and basically said he couldn't stay silent any longer. He had kept the evidence for self-protection, but now he thought William needed to know the truth, the full, unvarnished truth. That's the turning point. William now has original documents that clearly show the intervention from Camilla's office, not just delays, but actual edits to remove his role from major events. He takes this to Catherine, and she tells him what he probably already knows. He needs to bring it to the king. Charles needs to see what's been happening so he can make decisions based on reality, rather than the filtered version that's been reaching him. She emphasizes that the approach matters as much as the evidence itself. The meeting with Charles happens on a quiet morning at Buckingham Palace. William brings the folder with the original schedules, the one the secretary provided. He places it on the table and explains that he's cross-checked everything, and this is what actually happened before the documents reached the king. Charles flips through the pages, and you can imagine what's going through his mind. He's seeing proposals that were altered, crossed out, or delayed before he ever approved them. These aren't just administrative errors. These are edits made to control what information reached him and what decisions he could make. He places his hand on the folder and is silent for a long time. William doesn't push. He sits quietly and lets his father process. The silence in that room must have been heavy with the weight of realization. When Charles finally speaks, he says he sees clearly now and that this cannot continue. He convenes an emergency meeting with senior advisors and representatives from both offices, Camilla is there, her face attempting calm, but her tightly clenched hands giving away the anxiety. Charles declares that William will officially take on the majority of duties on behalf of the king, and that from now on, all proposals related to his schedule must be sent directly to both offices. He looks at William and says, "You are ready. I trust you." Camilla tries to explain, her voice trembling, saying it was only an administrative error, but Charles raises his hand to stop her. He says he has decided and there's no need for further debate. The matter is settled. And that's basically it. The decision cuts through everything. Camilla is removed from many important events and no longer participates directly in royal activity decisions. She sits there realizing the power she tried to hold on to is gone. William takes on the responsibilities that were supposed to be his all along. Catherine is there beside him. Charles, despite his exhaustion, seems at peace with handing things over. The transition that was being quietly delayed for months finally happens, not gradually and managed, but all at once because the delay itself became impossible to sustain. The dam finally broke. What's interesting about this whole situation, when you really look at it, is that the cover-up ultimately accelerated exactly what it was trying to prevent. Camilla's goal was to slow down William's rise and maintain her influence. But by being so aggressive about controlling information by editing documents and delaying reports, she created a paper trail that was eventually exposed. If she had just let the natural transition happen, William would have gradually taken on more duties, Charles would have gradually stepped back, and her role would have diminished slowly over time. Instead, the exposure of the interference forced an abrupt, decisive shift that removed her influence much more quickly and completely than a gradual transition ever would have. It's almost ironic when you think about it. The broader pattern here is something we've seen in institutions before, not just royal families, but companies and organizations of all kinds. When someone tries to control the flow of information to maintain their position, they almost always overreach. They get caught, and the consequences are usually worse than if they had just accepted the change that was coming. In this case, William didn't have to stage a confrontation or make accusations. He just had to follow the trail, present the facts, and let the king see what was happening. The evidence spoke for itself. Charles looked at the edited documents, understood what they meant, and made his decision. The truth carried its own authority. For William, this whole experience probably reinforced something important about how they'll operate going forward. He didn't rush in with accusations. He didn't create a public scene. He gathered evidence systematically, protected his father from unnecessary stress during the process, and only presented his findings when he had everything documented and verified. That's not just smart. That's the kind of measured approach you need when you're dealing with sensitive family dynamics that also happen to be matters of state. Catherine's role in this is also worth noting. She was consistently there as a sounding board, someone who could see the situation clearly and offer steady support without pushing him toward rash decisions. When she told him he was doing the right thing but needed to stay calm, that his father needed to see the truth rather than a confrontation, she was essentially articulating the strategy that ended up working. Her steady counsel made all the difference. The other layer here is what this reveals about Charles himself. Despite his fatigue and health challenges, when presented with clear evidence of what had been happening, he acted decisively. He didn't make excuses for Camilla. He didn't try to minimize what had occurred. He looked at the documents, recognized the seriousness of the interference, and made a decision that prioritized the stability of the monarchy and the well-being of his heir. That takes a certain kind of clarity, especially when the person involved is your wife and you're already physically exhausted. He could have tried to smooth things over or delay making a decision. He didn't. He called the meeting, made the declaration, and ended the debate. That moment of resolve defined the outcome. So where does this leave everyone? William is now officially handling the majority of duties on behalf of the king, which is where things probably should have been months earlier. Charles can actually follow his doctor's advice and reduce his workload without worrying that the institution will suffer. Catherine continues to be the steady presence beside William as he steps into this expanded role, and Camilla has been removed from the center of power, appearing less in official activities. Her influence significantly reduced. The secretary, who provided the original documents, took a significant risk, and it paid off in the sense that the truth came out, though what happens to him after this is its own question. His courage changed the course of events. The whole situation is a pretty clear example of how institutional power struggles work when you strip away the titles and the pageantry. Someone perceives a threat to their position, They try to control information to manage that threat. The control becomes visible through its effects. Even if the mechanism is hidden, someone investigates, evidence emerges. The truth comes out, and the person who tried to control everything ends up losing more than if they had just let things proceed naturally. It's a pattern that repeats across every kind of organization. The monarchy just happens to do it with more ceremony and higher stakes. The fundamentals remain exactly the same. Honestly, the fact that William had to basically conduct an internal investigation to find out why his father's schedule wasn't being adjusted is the part that sticks with me. This wasn't about some distant policy dispute. This was about a son watching his father exhaust himself and not being able to help because someone was deliberately blocking the normal processes that would have allowed him to step in. That's not politics. That's family. And the family dynamic here, the son trying to protect the father while respecting his authority, the stepmother trying to maintain her position, the father caught in the middle and unaware of the full picture. It's almost Shakespearean in its structure. Except instead of a tragedy, it ended with the king looking at the evidence and making the right call. The right call at the right moment. The new reign that's beginning now isn't just about William taking on more duties. It's about a different approach to transparency and process. If nothing else, this experience has probably made him very aware of how easily information can be controlled and how important it is to have systems that prevent that kind of interference. He's not going to forget what it took to get the truth in front of his father. And that awareness is going to shape how he runs things when he's the one in charge. The lessons learned here will echo for decades